Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wild, Creative, and Confident, a video interview series where you can learn from the most inspiring industry leaders on how you can use your passion and your creativity to design the life and the business of your dreams. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Thompson from wildandcreative.com, and today I have a special guest with me. Carrie Mitchell is a mixed media artist and a creative fire starter. She's the owner and operator of a studio collective called Heart School in her community, where she has basically brought together just numerous artists that are all working together as a creative powerhouse, essentially, right?
Oh, thanks, Sarah. I love that from now on.
Can you tell us a little bit about Heart School?
Okay, yeah. Heart School came to be. A lot of the reason I think that Heart School happened was because I had a studio in this really amazing building that's kind of old for Kelowna, the town that I'm in. It's now 103 years old, the building is, and it had numerous renovations over the years that made it really ugly on the inside, like ugly drop ceiling, kind of 70s style. So one of the things that inspired me to do it is that the building itself was a really cool place. And I had a small studio there that I shared with another girl. And a lot of times things kind of come to me in, I suppose, like visualizations or even dreams. And I had been teaching art in different locations. I had my studio in this building where Heart School is now. And I had been teaching it in a number of locations around town, and I was just getting exhausted carrying my art supplies and tables and everything with me. So I woke up one morning early in 2012, and I had kind of a vision or a dream that I was going to have my own classroom. And it just hit, like, it hit me in the heart, basically. And I drew out my logo, Heart School with the little square thing around it. And I thought it was just a scribble. And then over the months kind of just following that, I just started playing around with the logo because I am such a visual person. And I just kept waiting. I just knew that something was going to come. And I thought I was going to actually have to move my studio away from that building because the other spaces in there, I just thought, well, they're never going to come available. There's only 9 of them altogether on the second floor where I am. And I thought, well, I'm never going to be able to have it there because it's such a sought after building. And then one day my landlord came and she said, all the suites next door to you have just come available after 30 years. And I just wanted to let you know because I'm going to be showing people around the building. And I kind of like started, vibrating kind of, and I was like, I think this is it. This is it. Oh my goodness, I'm getting goosebumps just telling you this. And it was in like terrible shape. So now I have suites 5 through 9. That I only had number 5 to begin with. That was my studio. And over the course of the following months, so what I said to my landlord then, I kind of hung up the phone from her. And within 10 minutes, I phoned her back and I said, I'll take it. And I just seriously had no idea how this was all going to come to be. It was way bigger than
How are you going to pay for it? You're like, I don't know, I'll just take them all.
I'm going to pay for it, but I kind of had to take them all. I couldn't just take 2 or 3 or whatever. I had to take them all or not at all. So, so I phoned her back in 10 minutes and I was like, yeah, I'll take it. I had no idea how it was all going to come together. Like I knew there was going to be massive amounts of cleaning that needed doing, all that kind of stuff. And then of course, I had only imagined a classroom and a studio for me. That was my dream. But of course, I ended up with all this extra space. So now I have 1,400 square feet. Me and a couple other people took about 4 months to renovate, just like blasted the whole thing wide open. There's no elevator in my building, so that was kind of like a part of the story. That was just the craziest thing. We were cutting out walls and carrying all this debris down the stairs with our bare hands because there was no other way to get it out of the building. So it was like, yeah, anyway, crazy carpets and concrete and just carrying it all out of there.
So the creation of Heart School was a big art project in itself.
Totally.
And so now it is basically like a collaboration hub for artists in your community where they each have their own spaces, and there's art like trainings or classroom trainings, things like that.
Yeah, we do all different kinds of things because it sort of became, over the course of our renovation in our first year in business, it became kind of more of a multi-purpose space because it's literally in the central corner of Kelowna. So it's become a place where we do art workshops, lessons, that kind of thing. But we also have small house concerts with kind of up and coming grassrootsy type of musicians. Other people put on workshops beside our residents.
Nice.
And it's very open concept, so we can close it all down so that each artist has their own studio with the doors closed, or we can open it right up and have like gallery showings where it's super open. And we designed it that way so that there's, doorways between each studio.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when it comes to you, obviously you said you're a very visual person, you're very creative. Where did your inspiration start? Like, when do you really remember it starting, like in your life?
Oh man. Well, I can remember wanting to make things from as far back as my memory goes. Pardon me. And I think my dad is a really creative person. So, and actually both my parents are, but it never took the form of art. But I lived on a farm from age 10 years old. I lived on quite a big farm in Kelowna. And my dad was one of the pioneers of the wine industry in the Okanagan.
Wow.
And on that farm, there were like massive lodgepole pine trees. We had apple, pear, grapes. And nature kind of was my first media, I would say. Like I became sort of like this wanderer of this property. There was a hill on our property that was actually clay.
Wow.
So you could wet it and kind of make pinch pots. And it was before conscious thought for me. I was making things. And I remember like being fascinated with the pine needles because they come in threes, right? Each pine needle has 3 strands on it. So I would braid them and then weave them into like little baskets.
So you had everything you needed on site.
Yeah, just everything, like painting rocks. But nature was my first media. And I would say that cooking was probably my second because
Wow.
I learned how to cook and bake and things like that really, really young. Yeah.
I know as an artist, I've been watching you for probably about 10 years or so now. Your art about 10 years ago was very much of, painting nature and painting fruit and painting that kind of thing. And now you've really morphed into more of a mixed media artist, but very contemporary in ways, right? And you've really just spread your whole portfolio open in every direction. Can you just share about the phases of your art in a sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wow, that's cool. You're kind of giving me a moment here where I'm reflecting back. So yeah, I started, I went to art school and I actually didn't study painting, but I didn't get to finish my degree because I was a young mom, right, kind of in the middle of art school. So that was when I started painting watercolors, because watercolors are just such a great medium if you don't have a lot of time on your hands. And I just found it to be such a forgiving media. And that really helped me develop my drawing and sketching as well, because I wanted to paint the memories I had from growing up in the Okanagan. And at the time, I was living in Calgary. My kids were both born in Calgary. So I had grown up in Kelowna, moved to Calgary when I got married, and had my kids. And I was really, really longing for Kelowna and the farm and my childhood, living in the suburbs of a big city with two little kids. It felt so foreign to me. So my watercolors of my memories of Kelowna were, I think, one of the things that really saved me, from going through things like postpartum depression and stuff like that, my moods were really hard at that time. Like I was really kind of on a little bit of a mood roller coaster, and art was the thing that always got me through. So that was the inspiration behind, wanting to paint grapes and apples and that sort of thing. But I'm a very, I'm visual, but I'm also a very kinetic person, like tactile. I like things that I can immerse myself in. So as I grew into my studio time, I always describe getting my studio was like strapping on a pair of wings. I just felt like I could expand, and my work expanded, and I started to explore. So some of the things that influenced the change and the evolution in my work was that, getting a studio. But also I worked at Opus Art Supply for about a year. And I think that really helped me develop into a mixed media artist and use a lot of things in a really alternative way.
You've also done, there's also been a part of your life where you've done a series of faces, haven't you, through your art? And I feel like they really got your name out there. So anybody who's watching, definitely check out Carrie's older stuff.
Well, thank you for saying that, Sarah, because you were one of the big inspirations of that part of my...
I had a couple of commissioned pieces.
Yeah, I love doing that piece of your grandma. That was so cool. And then the jewelry that came after that with your grandma's face. Yeah. And symbolism, I think, was also something that piece really inspired me to include. So the portraits that I did, I use the word portrait very loosely because they're not, super representative of the person, but I would include symbolism in those face paintings and sketches that were representative of that person as well. And I think that has helped me grow into what I have now, because symbolism and collage and stuff, really, that was kind of the time when that was born for me.
Right.
I don't know if this kind of applies to the interview or not, but just going back to what I was saying about dealing with depression and that kind of thing, depression, anxiety. That series of faces that I did over the course of a couple of years was probably the hardest time in my life for that. And that was right about the inception of Facebook and social media. And I just got lit on fire because all of a sudden I had access to all these like-minded people, mostly women, who did mixed media, and that style of, portraits with symbolism and collage, and much more loose and kind of open and free. And I was able to talk to them, other people that were going through similar things that I was, young kids and relationships and like depression, that kind of thing. And so that was it's always been a big defining factor for me, I think, is kind of my mental health and how art gets me through. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that many people watching, artistic, quote or not, have gone through many different stages of their life where they've been at different levels, right? And it's interesting that you say that the Faces series that you did a couple years ago, when you maybe were going through a harder time, they seem to be the most vibrant paintings that I've seen of yours, which is so interesting, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me what you feel that your passion for life that you have now with your business, why is it different than other people's at this time? Like, what makes you unique?
I think I really kind of honor and pay homage to the times in my life that were and have been very difficult. And I see them as like huge gifts, although probably if you asked me
During that time.
they were really, really tough, I don't know that I would have been so grateful for them. But, you know, I can look back over my life and think about, you know, probably 10 or 12 really tough years where I dealt with depression, anxiety, and I didn't really know what was happening to me until probably the last few years. I didn't understand what was happening to me. But I do look back on those and see how it really formed who I am, that I'm strong enough to weather those storms and deal with them through my creativity, I guess. And I really kind of outed myself as someone with mental health challenges. Gosh, when would that have been? Probably about 5 years ago now. I was really at a good place when I did it, which is a funny thing, you know, you got to be careful, right? Yeah. So I put myself really out there and kind of, you know, told the world and started blogging and talking about, you know, art and mental health challenges. And that was a really empowering thing to do in that state of mind. But I will say that I have had some regrets about doing that, especially over the last year with going through some difficulties with my business and relationships and other stuff. Man, if you had asked me in 2015 if I thought it was a good idea to come out as someone, like really speak out as a champion for mental health, last year I would have said that was a bad idea.
Do you think that the reason that you're saying that now, because before our interview, we were just talking about some just challenges that you've had in your business with expanding and things like that. Do you think that that is all self-imposed on you now? Or are you kind of finding that the community that you've worked with have brought things up? Or is that just you thinking that personally, that it would have been not a good idea?
It's probably been a combination of those two things. Because, you know, I'm sure any entrepreneur could say this, that when you're at the top of your game and things are going well for you, everybody's your friend. Everybody wants to know about you. There's people want to write stories about you.
Everyone's your best friend.
Yeah, it's and you just think, oh wow, I'm all that, you know. And then the second you start going through a tough time, feels like poof, everybody vanishes, and all of a sudden you're just like yesterday's news, right? So 2015 probably was that year for me where I really felt like abandoned and forgotten about, and I'm sure most of it was up here, right? And that's kind of another part of, I think, the way I deal with tough times is I kind of go underground, just get into a restorative state. I think I'm like a hibernating bear.
But we all go through times of expansion and contraction, right? I mean, maybe that last year was just a really good contraction part of your life, and now this year is like you're gonna bloom even bigger, right?
Yeah. Yes, and like to just go back a question, I think what you were asking me about, what is my passion? I think you were kind of asking me like what's a strength and what keeps me going. And it was almost like January 1st this year, the clock clicked over and I was like, okay, I get what that was all about. And that was really necessary, and it was really hard, and it was really amazing. And the 2016 feels like an awesome year already. Like I feel growth. I feel, you know, some success coming on. I feel like my creativity is kind of flowing a bit better. I've got great people around me again. And so, yeah, like I'm really learning each time this happens to me, how grateful I am that, I mean, I almost think sometimes that maybe I'm strong enough to be a little bit sacrificial so that I can come out and say, creative people are highly sensitive and you're not alone if you're one of those, and you are going to have hard times, and listen to my story and some other people's story and just know you're going to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And know your art and your life and everything is going to come out the other side and be even better.
Yeah.
Don't avoid those tough times, and don't despair over them. Just settle into them, like sit in them, like they would say in a yoga class, like breathe down into your belly and hang on for dear life.
Well, and the thing is, there are so many people out there that have been dealing with, the same things that you've been dealing with, and maybe they just don't talk about them, or they hide them, or whatever. That could be the same for any subject, right? But it's wonderful that you're sharing it, because there's going to be people watching this interview that, have these same issues, if you will, like within themselves, right? And it's just, you really took art by the handles, and you use that as, in a sense, a medicinal form of therapy for yourself, right? For what you were going through. And, people might even be doing that now, whatever your art is, whether it be cooking or whether it be the way you walk your dog, maybe you go on fun adventures. All of that is art that is a form of therapy, right? So.
Yeah. And that has been something that I think has developed my passion for teaching art, and for teaching, not just teaching art, but teaching artists how to thrive. And I love what you're doing with the kind of creative coaching. I think that is so important, because to me, like you're just saying, the art form is life. It just is, how are we going to express that? If you want to learn how to paint, to express that through paint, then let's go there, but let's build that on top of a foundation of something. I think spiritual, emotional, mental, basis for something, and then building your art on top of that. And I try not to, like when I'm teaching an art class, I don't teach an art class. I walk people through their finding their own higher truth, finding their higher, voice, using art just as the medium.
Right.
To come away with something. And that's why when people ask me, is this a beginner class or is this an advanced class, and whatever, I say, I don't specify that ever.
Yeah. Because they're going to get out of it whatever they need, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's more about just being together and bouncing things. And yeah.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment so far when it comes to the subject of personal power and understanding yourself to the point where now, in this moment, you are feeling ease and flow within your business?
Oh, wow. Gosh. That's a tough question.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody doesn't experience ease and flow at some points, right? Yeah. But what I see as an outsider, with everything that you've really gone through, and your stories, and just the way that you've changed throughout the years, and your art, and just the different ways that you've done things, to me, I feel like you definitely know who you are as a person, whether you have your bad days or not. And so I want to know, what's your greatest accomplishment in getting there?
Oh, wow. Thank you. I can think of so many, but maybe just not to be repetitive, but just kind of going back to what we've already talked about. Just every time I come through, I'm just going to throw the word out there. Every time I come through depression for a period of time, I become more myself. And, I've had times where the despair is so great that I literally have to kind of breathe through a day sometimes, just, and not put too much pressure on myself to to accomplish anything on that day. And I mean, really, that I would say that's my biggest accomplishment. When I have a moment like how I feel today, and I'm really excited to talk to you, and I'm actually on a trip right now to visit my daughter. You know, I just,
today's a good day.
I'm here, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm so filled with joy and all the things I have. I mean, you know, building this studio and loving on as many artists as I possibly can. That's a huge one. You know, yeah, my painting
You've
work.
got too many.
I do. Yeah, and actually just talking to you is kind of one of the things I kind of beat myself up over, among, you know, many of those things, is that I've had a hard time sticking with one consistent style of art. And I'm sort of facing a challenge that probably many artists face right now, and that is that I would really love to have better representation in, other cities and other parts of the world. And because I've been so busy for the last few years with the studio and just running a business and other things that life throws at me, I haven't been marketing myself very well. Mm. And so I am hypercritical of the fact that I do have so many media. I mean, like, if you looked at my watercolors and then the portraits and now my abstracts and stuff,
it's all so different, but in that series, it's so you, and then it's so you, right? So
yeah. And like I say, I'm critical and probably not very objective about it, but I think that would be something that I want to happen going forward, is that I develop some consistency and collectability, maybe. Yeah. I don't know if I'm answering your questions.
No, that's totally awesome. No, that's wonderful. I have a good question for you, because you work with so many artists all the time. How have you personally taken the route of being very creative opposed to being competitive within the art field? And when it comes to, your business or art school or whatever, how has competition affected you over the years?
Competition really has not affected me until very recently. I don't ever feel competitive as an artist, because and I think we've talked about this, you and I, many times over the years, about how I believe there's room for everybody, that creativity is such a wide open playing field. And every time somebody writes a song or figures out a new way of putting color on a canvas or whatever, even teaching art, that kind of thing, every time someone does that, it opens up a door for the entire world. It's like this chaos theory. It just, that is a beautiful thing. I don't believe in competition amongst artists, but as a business person, that's something that that's definitely on my mind. Kelowna's growing really fast right now, especially in the creative tech community and culture. And so I am dealing with my own feelings around competition of other spaces opening up that do what I do. And, I guess as a business person, that this is something kind of newish for me, because I've always kind of been a bit of a lone ranger as far as being an artist.
Right.
But there is a lot of people doing what I do now. Teachers, art teachers, people opening spaces for artists to rent, that kind of thing.
But maybe you started that whole movement, right?
Well, people do say that, that I was the first of its kind, and it did kind of, I've had a few people who've opened up spaces say that, you kind of paved the way. And, I think back to my dad in the early 80s, he started the third estate winery in the Okanagan. At the time, everybody said, this is nuts, Canadian wine's a joke, this is never going to work, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden there was this great explosion to what we know of now as Canadian wine, get like Okanagan wine. It's a pretty big deal. And I kind of wonder sometimes, is that my path too? And it really beat my dad up. Like, he did an amazing thing, and he really, really put a lot on the line to do what he did. Some of the vines he planted are still producing grapes that are making wine now. And we got out of the wine industry in the late 80s. So, he really did pave the way, and it beat him up. And I kind of sometimes wonder now with the notion, like talking about the notion of competition, and the year I had last year, I'm like, ooh, is this deja vu? And is this thing gonna just kick my, you know what? I hope not. I hope that I can kind of reinvent a little bit this year, pare down maybe what my offerings are as far as a studio operator, because I think I do have something that's different than what other people are doing, even though,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. There isn't going to be another Heart School, right? And you definitely are such a character on your own that it definitely shines into your business. So, I mean, as long as you keep very authentic and just totally you, there's not going to be another one, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Hopefully there won't be.
Yeah.
What would you suggest to women that are watching, or future entrepreneurs that are wanting to, get out there and do something for themselves and for their community and for the world? What's a method that you've used over the years that has really helped you, get in the groove with your soul's true calling?
Well, I never stopped my craft. I've never, no matter how busy I was or what I was doing, I have never stopped painting, drawing, gluing things down. I've never stopped doing that. And actually, some of my most creative times were in the middle of that massive renovation, and writing business plans and all the things I've done as an entrepreneur and a business person in the last 4 years. I never stopped with my craft. I was constantly making art. So, and I think the big thing about that is that I never thought about the outcome. I never thought about, oh, is this going to be a $10,000 painting? Probably not. It was always just doing that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome of whatever came out on the paper, the canvas or whatever, that was almost secondary. It was like I had to keep making things and perfecting my craft. So that was number one. And I suppose, like, I'm just thinking about, I think you kind of asked me about what were more of my successes, but I see so much value in my failures. And I almost think, man, I could teach a course right now based on all the things I did wrong. And I think probably the biggest thing I think that I don't know, like, for lack of a better word, the mistake I made was my ego really got in the way of what I was doing. And I believe that led to a lot of angst that I experienced last year. When I first built Heart School and I was, my artwork was starting to kind of get some attention. It was exciting. It was so exciting. Like, I had people just so curious about what I was doing, from, municipal government to media to people were just so curious about what I was doing as an artist and as a person who was opening the first kind of collective studio of its kind in Kelowna. And so then when it came to the time when I wanted to grow, which was far too soon to grow as big as I did, my ego was really like the thing that got me into trouble. Like, I just, so yeah, I don't know if that helps or not. I think,
yeah, no, I mean, but the thing is, lessons of the ego and lessons of failures, or, all of that kind of thing are all lessons that people have to experience themselves, right? So I think what you're trying to share is that don't dismiss any of those things. It's just as important to have failures in a sense, because you grow that much stronger from them. If we only had successes all the time, yeah, that'd be fun for a while, but I mean, I don't know if you'd really keep growing by leaps and bounds as you think that you would, right? So
You're right. Yeah, your vision gets very narrow when you are in a phase of success and accomplishment. I think your vision does get quite narrow, and they're both awesome. Like I talk about a lot when I'm teaching my art classes. I talk about the phases of chaos and order.
mm-hmm.
When you're making a painting, it's such a great analogy of that. Is that, I think a lot of us can relate to that are creative. You can relate to the phase of chaos where you think, oh, I hate this thing, I'm just gonna paint gesso right over it. I've had so many people say that. Can you just give me the gesso, because I just want to cover that thing. And I always say, no, you're just in a phase of chaos, and that is so important, because you are driven now to find order in that painting, in life, in that pie you're baking, like whatever it is. You go through these phases of chaos and order, and they're both valid. Like neither one of them are to be, hated or whatever. But I think as human beings, we get so hard on ourselves that we see that chaos phase as a time of lack.
Right. Or defeat.
Defeat, yeah. But it's a builder. And I'm not even kidding when I say that I want to start teaching courses based completely on my failures, because there's so much power in that.
Yeah. No, I think that it's a wonderful idea. At least, even write a book on, on your 100 failures.
Yeah, totally.
Where can people find you if they want to start following you? So where are you online?
Well, I have two websites. I have one for Heart School. It's heartschoolkelowna.com. And then my own website is herfootsteps.com.
Okay.
And I'm really active on Instagram. And my Instagram handle is Carrie Ann Art. But I you can follow my Instagram feed on both my websites as well.
Okay. And yeah, we'll put all those links up by your bio for people that want to start following you. What can we see from you in the future? What have you got going on?
Well, I'm so happy you asked me that question. I am really excited because not too long ago, I had another one of those really juicy dreams, like I had when I drew the Heart School logo. And I have 12 profiles of creative people.
Okay.
And I'm really excited. And right now I'm working on kind of like a little system around that, because I think I've been around so many creative people, and over the last 3 or 4 years, especially, I'm really starting to see like what motivates one person might be completely different than motivates another. What's your best environment? Who are the people that you need to surround yourself with? What kind of medium might be really interesting to you? What lights your fire? That kind of thing. So I'm in the kind of writing phase of that, and also painting images that go with those profiles in this system that I'm developing.
Nice. Well, I hope that you will be sharing on Instagram your journey as you go about with that, so we can watch and tune in. Yeah. And I have one more question for you before we go. What is it that makes you wild, creative, and confident?
Oh, well, as they say in Portland, just stay weird. Hence the crazy hair.
No, it's your signature color. It's your signature color. Yeah. I think that you are wild, creative, and confident in just, it's funny, I'm just going to say in just who you are, just like the energy that you exude, and how colorful you actually really are. And you're a very confident person, no matter if sometimes you might not think so. I think that you're a very, very confident person, and you definitely are a change maker in your community. So.
Aw, thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
It means a lot to me.
So everybody definitely check out Carrie's information and all her links that are going to be by her bio. And yeah, you're not going to want to miss the next year of Carrie's life. It's going to be extremely amazing. I just know it. And yeah. And we'll see you all again soon. Thanks so much for watching.